16-year-old Emma Brooks stood outside the lawyer's office holding a single brass key. Everything she owned fit inside one worn backpack. Her parents had died years earlier, and she'd been living with an aunt who never wanted the responsibility. The day Emma turned 16, her aunt made her decision. "I've done enough." She set Emma's backpack on the porch. "You'll have to figure things out yourself." There was no argument. No goodbye, just a closed door. Emma spent 3 nights sleeping in the bus station before a local attorney called. Your grandmother left something in her will. Hope flickered inside her. Maybe a savings account. Maybe enough money for an apartment. Instead, the attorney slid one faded photograph across the desk. A tiny brick bakery. Its windows were boarded shut. The painted sign had almost disappeared beneath years of peeling paint. "Brooks Bakery. That's it?" Emma asked. The attorney nodded. "Your grandmother owned the building outright. I heard it closed years ago." "It did. Why would she leave me an abandoned bakery?" The attorney smiled gently. She wrote only one sentence. He handed Emma a folded note. "The bread was never the greatest thing I baked." Emma read it 3 times. She didn't understand, but it was all she had. The bakery sat on a quiet corner where newer businesses had taken over. Most people barely noticed it anymore. Broken flower boxes hung beneath dusty windows. The front bell still chimed softly when Emma unlocked the door. The smell surprised her. Not mold. Not decay. Even after all those years. There was still a faint scent of cinnamon. Dust covered every surface. Old display cases remained exactly where customers once stood. The ovens stretched across the back wall. A handwritten chalk menu still listed fresh pies for 75 cents. Emma smiled. It feels like Grandma just stepped outside. She spent the next several weeks cleaning. She swept every floor, washed every window, repaired broken shelves. During the day, she worked at a grocery store stocking produce. At night, she returned to the bakery. Little by little, the old place came back to life. One afternoon, an elderly customer stopped outside. His name was Mr. Alvarez. "I haven't seen these windows clean in 20 years. You knew my grandmother?" He laughed. Everyone knew Margaret Brooks. Was she really that good of a baker? The best. He looked toward the old ovens. "But that's not why people came." Emma frowned. "What do you mean?" "They came because no one left hungry." He smiled sadly. "If someone couldn't pay, Grandma gave them bread anyway." Mr. Alvarez reached into his pocket and handed Emma a tarnished brass token. "She gave me this when I was 8. The token had a loaf of bread engraved on one side. On the other, only 3 words. Kindness returns home. That evening, Emma found dozens of identical brass tokens hidden inside an old cash register drawer. Every one looked worn from years of use. Each carried a different number. She wondered why her grandmother had made them. A week later, a woman in an expensive business suit entered the bakery. She admired the freshly cleaned interior. "You've done remarkable work." "Thank you. I'm Laura Simmons. I represent Heritage Commercial Properties." She placed a folder on the counter. "We'd like to purchase this building." Emma laughed politely. "The building isn't even finished. We'll offer $1 million. Emma nearly dropped the broom. "$1 million. Laura nodded. "You can move on with your life." Emma looked around the bakery. At the worn wooden floors. The antique display cases. The old ovens. She quietly slid the folder back. "No." Laura smiled. "If you change your mind." She left her business card. "Call me." Over the following month, 2 more companies made offers. Each offer climbed higher. $2 million. Then $3.5 million. The strange part wasn't the money. It was that every buyer asked exactly one question. "Has anyone opened the old baking room yet?" Emma always answered honestly. "No." Every buyer looked relieved. That answer bothered her. She had cleaned every room. Except one. Behind the enormous brick oven stood an old flour storage room. Its heavy oak door had been nailed shut decades earlier. The hinges had rusted solid. A faded handwritten sign remained attached. "Do not remove." Curiosity kept growing. Late one evening, Emma borrowed a pry bar from the hardware store. Carefully, she removed the old boards. The heavy oak door groaned open. A cloud of flour dust drifted into the bakery. Inside, nothing. Just empty shelves. Old flour sacks. Wooden barrels. She sighed. So that's the mystery? As she turned to leave, her flashlight reflected off something unusual. One section of the back wall looked newer. The bricks didn't match. She knocked gently. "Hello." Her heartbeat quickened. Using the pry bar again, She loosened several bricks. Behind them rested an old iron wheel. Emma turned it. A deep, grinding sound echoed beneath the floor. The shelving slowly rolled sideways. Cold air drifted upward. Hidden behind it stood a narrow staircase descending into darkness. She stared in disbelief. Grandma had hidden an entire room. Lantern in hand, Emma carefully climbed down. The staircase opened into a surprisingly beautiful underground chamber. Not a cellar, not a pantry, a library. Floor-to-ceiling wooden shelves held hundreds of journals, recipe books, letters, leather-bound ledgers, historic town maps, photographs. At the center stood a polished oak table. Resting on it was a small envelope. Across the front, written in graceful handwriting, were 2 words. For Emma. Tears filled her eyes. She slowly opened the letter. The first sentence made her freeze. If you're reading this, then you chose to save the bakery instead of selling it. Emma whispered, Grandma. She eagerly turned the page, then stopped. The sound of footsteps echoed upstairs. Someone had entered the bakery. The old front bell rang once. Then again. Emma quietly extinguished her lantern. Someone was slowly walking toward the old flower room. Emma held her breath. The footsteps stopped directly above her. Someone moved through the bakery slowly. Not like a burglar. Like someone searching for something specific. She quietly folded her grandmother's letter and slipped it into her jacket. The underground room remained silent. After several tense minutes, the footsteps faded. The front bell rang once more. Whoever had entered was gone. Emma climbed the stairs carefully and peeked into the bakery. Nothing had been stolen, but something had changed. One flour sack beside the old oven had been moved several inches. Someone knew the hidden room existed. She locked every door before returning underground. Hands trembling, she unfolded the letter again. Emma, if you've reached this room, then you proved something very important. You chose to restore this bakery before knowing its true value. She smiled through tears. The letter continued. Everyone believed I spent my life baking bread. Bread only opened the door. Emma looked around the underground library. Her grandmother had filled shelves with carefully labeled ledgers. Every journal carried a year. 1948, 1949, 1950, 1951. Nearly 50 years of handwritten records. She opened the first ledger. It wasn't bakery bookkeeping. It was a list of names. Beside every name appeared small notes. Widowed, house fire, lost his job, 3 hungry children. Each page documented people her grandmother had quietly helped. She hadn't simply given away bread. She had secretly loaned families enough money to survive difficult times. No interest. No contracts. Only trust. Emma opened another ledger. Inside were hundreds of handwritten receipts. Every family had eventually repaid the money. Not because they were forced. Because Margaret Brooks believed dignity mattered. The repayments had created something extraordinary. Over 50 years, thousands of tiny loans had slowly grown into a community trust. The final balance sat inside the newest ledger. Emma stared in disbelief. The Brooks Community Trust. Current assets, $24,870,000. She blinked twice. $24 million. Not hidden cash. Not buried gold. A carefully invested community fund built one act of kindness at a time. Another envelope rested beneath the ledger. The rules. Emma opened it. There were only 3. First, no family shall ever lose their home because of temporary hardship if this trust can help. Second, every loan must preserve dignity. Never charity without respect. Third, the bakery must always remain open. Emma whispered. So this is why you left me the building. The bakery wasn't collateral. It was the heart of the trust. She continued reading. The bakery reminds people that kindness can be ordinary. If they walk into a bank, they feel judged. If they walk into a bakery, they simply smell bread. Tears rolled down Emma's cheeks. Suddenly another discovery caught her eye. An old brass cabinet held hundreds of numbered envelopes. Each matched the brass token she'd found. She opened one. Inside rested a handwritten note. If you're holding token 42, you've probably fallen on hard times again. Please don't be embarrassed. Come downstairs. Someone will help. Emma understood. The brass tokens weren't souvenirs. They were silent invitations. People carried them for decades. If life became difficult again, they knew exactly where to return. Grandma had built an invisible safety net for the town. No one had realized it. Morning arrived before Emma climbed back upstairs. She unlocked the bakery. Within an hour, Mr. Alvarez stopped by. "You look different." Emma smiled. "I think I finally met my grandmother." He looked confused. "You already knew her?" "No. I only knew she baked." Mr. Alvarez smiled knowingly. "I always suspected there was more." Emma reached beneath the counter and placed one brass token into his hand. His eyes widened. "You found them." "I found everything." Word spread quickly that Brooks Bakery was reopening. Neighbors volunteered. A retired electrician repaired old wiring. A carpenter rebuilt display shelves. Local farmers donated flour, eggs, and butter. High school students painted walls after class. Nobody asked for payment. Margaret Brooks had once helped nearly every family in town. Now the town quietly returned a favor. 2 weeks later, Laura Simmons returned. She looked surprised. "The bakery is reopening." "It is." Laura placed another folder on the counter. "Our final offer." Emma never opened it. "I'm not selling." Laura hesitated. "You don't even know what's planned for this block." Emma smiled. "I do." Laura looked startled. Emma slid one document across the counter. It showed heritage commercial properties intended to demolish the entire neighborhood for luxury condominiums, including affordable apartments above several small businesses. Laura slowly closed her folder. "You found the records." Emma nodded. "My grandmother kept excellent notes." Laura quietly left. She never returned. Months later, Brooks Bakery reopened. Fresh bread filled the street every morning. But something else quietly returned. Hope. A struggling mechanic received an emergency loan to keep his garage open. A single mother avoided eviction. A teenage apprentice paid trade school tuition. An elderly widower repaired his leaking roof before winter. None of them signed humiliating paperwork. They simply received a brass token. Exactly as Margaret intended. Years passed. The trust grew larger. The bakery became the busiest gathering place in town. Children still spent their allowance on cinnamon rolls. Retired neighbors gathered every morning over coffee. Travelers came for homemade pies. Few ever realized the greatest thing inside Brooks Bakery wasn't the bread. It was the quiet promise hidden beneath the floorboards. One evening, Emma stood alone in the bakery after closing. Warm light filled the room. Fresh loaves cooled beside the windows. She reached into her apron pocket. The old brass token rested in her palm. Kindness returns home. She finally understood. Most people believed her life changed because she inherited an abandoned bakery hiding a secret room. That wasn't the real story. The hidden room wasn't the treasure. The underground library wasn't the treasure. Even the $24 million trust wasn't the greatest inheritance. Margaret Brooks left her granddaughter something far more valuable. She proved that wealth built through compassion lasts longer than wealth built through greed. She showed that one loaf of bread, offered with dignity, could begin changing lives for generations. For a homeless 16-year-old who thought she'd inherited nothing but an abandoned bakery, that became the recipe that transformed not only her future, but an entire town.